Hey everybody, I am going live to do our weekly live training. And today's topic is, are your workouts effective? And how to know if they are, and how to fix them if they're not effective. So how this topic came up is I know that just in general, from being a coach and just my experience from lifting overall, that a lot of people struggle with basically spinning their wheels in the gym. Like typically they go from year to year looking the same and performing the same. So they may have gotten their newbie gains in the gym, which if you're not familiar with newbie gains are basically the really quick and fast gains that you get whenever you first start weightlifting. You build strength really quickly. Oftentimes your body can recomp, meaning it can lose fat and build muscle at the same time, which is really hard to do once you get past that newbie phase. There are so many people out there who, once they reach their newbie gains, they stay stuck for years. They look the same year after year. They're not building muscle mass like they want to. They're not building strength like they want to, and they essentially maintain the way that they look and they perform despite the significant time and energy and consistency that they have invested in the gym and with eating healthy. So I'm going to be teaching you guys how to avoid that, how to get out of that by assessing if your workouts are effective in the first place, and if they're not, how to fix that. And by the way, if you guys have any questions, just type them in the chat and I'll get to them at some point. So before we dive into your workouts, we have to first make sure that your foundations are in order first. So the foundations of your fitness training would be proper sleep, nutrition, mineral status, and proper form and rep execution. Now, the reason why we have to cover these first is because if one or multiples of these are out of order, we can't really verify whether or not your workout is the problem in and of itself, because these four foundational things have such weight in how your body responds to positive or negative adaptations. So that's the reason why. Unless, of course, you have like a really, really crappy workout plan, then, that would be pretty easy to tell that your training needs fixed. But for most people who are not beginners, people who are experienced lifters, whether intermediate or advanced, we want to make sure that these four things are in order first. So for sleep, if you are chronically not getting sufficient sleep, that is going to greatly impact your ability to get stronger and build muscle mass, because those positive adaptations of getting stronger and building muscle mass occur when you are resting, when you are sleeping. And if you're chronically getting poor sleep, it's going to negatively impact so many of your hormones. It's also going to impact, obviously, your energy levels. It's going to impact your metabolism. You will feel more hungry, but it will not increase your metabolism. So if you give into that, you'll just gain fat. So for example, even if it's not chronic sleep, like let's say you just had one night of poor sleep and you decide to work out the following day instead of taking a rest day, what's going to happen is, so if you're like an intermediate or advanced lifter and you know the principle of progressive overload is basically continuously challenging your muscle and your strength gains as you get stronger. So we know that we want to get stronger or aim to get stronger in all of our workouts so that we build strength and so that we build muscle mass. That's progressive overload. So you're constantly adding load in some form or another, whether that's more weight or more reps. But if you're very fatigued from last night's poor sleep or little sleep, and you're an intermediate or advanced lifter, you're not going to be able to perform as well. And if you're not performing as well, you're not going to challenge progressive overload, like more reps, more weight, as an example. And so, in essence, that workout was kind of pointless. Like, if you got the best of that situation, was which would be like getting the same amount of weight and the same amount of reps, so you performed the exact same, then yeah, like you maintained whatever. But I would argue that you'd be better off in that situation as an intermediate or advanced lifter to just go ahead and take an extra rest day so that your body can fully recover. And so when you come back to your next workout, you can actually challenge yourself to either get more weight, more reps, so that you can achieve progressive overload, so that you can build more muscle and strength. Now, this also does apply to beginner lifters, not quite as severely. So if you're a beginner lifter, and you've had like poor sleep the night before, or even to a degree chronically, I would say you can still receive benefit from going to the gym. You won't perform as well, but because your body can adapt so quickly, because in essence you don't really know how to train with great intensity yet, you're mostly getting like practice of volume, so you can achieve some adaptations still in that scenario, but it's still not going to be ideal. And if it's a long-term chronic thing, then yes, that will catch up to you. So sleep is so important and foundational for strength gains and muscle gains. And by the way, if you guys don't know how to improve your sleep, if you struggle with your sleep, but you don't know how to improve it, I have a whole training showing you exactly how to do that, in video or a readable guide. And if you guys need that, just let me know. The other foundational thing is your nutrition. If everything else is on point, including your training, but your nutrition, you're likely going to be spinning your wheels, especially after you get past the newbie gains. So whether you're trying to lose fat, gain muscle, or strength, your nutrition needs to be on point to ensure that your training is effective. So the main goal of your training should be to improve your performance, which will lend to both increased muscle and strength gains, especially if you're doing progressive overload. So training can contribute to fat loss, but fat loss will primarily come from being in a caloric deficit. But if you're in a caloric deficit, you don't want to, you basically don't want to diet for way too long or too severely, because that can negatively, like down the road, that can negatively impact your training. So if your main goal right now is to lose some fat while building some strength and some muscle, then what you should focus on are 3 things during that dieting phase. And that is, you should have regular diet breaks, which is where you go to your maintenance calories for, say, maybe a week or two, every 2 to 4 weeks during your whole diet phase. And what that'll do is it'll prevent some negative metabolic adaptations, meaning your metabolism slows down. It can also preserve some more lean muscle, i.e., lean tissue, i.e. muscle. The second thing that you should do is don't diet for more than 8 to 16 weeks at a time. Max, maybe 20 weeks if you're really obese. But you should still have regular diet breaks in between. And the reason why you don't want to diet for too long is because, again, negative metabolic adaptations can occur, which means your metabolism slows down. And then that is going to impact your strength gains. You'll often get weaker, and you can even lose muscle mass. And then the third thing, if you're in a diet, is you should aim to at least maintain your strength in all of your lifts. If you're an intermediate or advanced lifter, the reason why I say that is because you're already more of an experienced lifter. And while it is possible to get strength and muscle gains while you're dieting, it is much harder and it's not the ideal way to try to gain muscle and strength. But if you're a beginner, you should aim to at least maintain your strength, but you can expect to also increase your strength. So those are the three things that you should do in your nutrition if you're dieting. Now, as I mentioned, if you're dieting, max amount of time your diet should last for is 8 to 16 weeks at a time. But if you're wanting to build muscle and strength, you need to spend most of your year eating at maintenance or a lean bulk and switching between the two, depending on your goals. Because building muscle mass and strength adaptations requires energy or fuel, in other words, calories. So if you're really wanting to build strength and muscle mass, you have to fuel yourself properly with enough food. But if you're dieting, most months out of the year, building muscle mass and strength is going to plateau quickly, especially after those newbie gains. So no matter how great your program is or how hard you train, you're going to reach strength and muscle gain plateaus if you're spending a lot of time dieting and not at maintenance or switching between a lean bulk. So let's see. I want to make sure I covered all that. Okay, so basically, whenever you finish your diet, remember max 8 to 16 weeks at a time, you should immediately go back to your maintenance calories. Now, assuming your metabolism hasn't slowed down, it might be about the same maintenance calories as it was before you started your diet, or it might be a little bit lower. But assuming you had diet breaks, it shouldn't be too much lower. And then after that, you can transition into either a reverse diet if your metabolism needs to be repaired, like sped up a little bit, like say you damaged it a bit in your diet, which is unlikely to occur if you follow the rules or the guidelines that I mentioned. And then from there, after the reverse diet, if you felt you needed it, then you can transition into a lean bulk. And that is going to be the sweet spot for building strength and muscle mass really easily and quickly. So real quickly, I don't want to go into too detail on this. So how do you lean bulk? You can increase your calories by 100 to about 250 every 2 to 3 weeks, depending on how your body is responding. So you should be tracking your daily measurements, your scale measurements, and then averaging out that total for the week. So you want to pay attention to the average number of the scale for the whole week. And for a lean bulk, you want to keep weight gain to about 0.2 to 0.5% of your body weight weekly, gaining weight. And then once your body levels off for the week, like you didn't really gain much, or you didn't gain anything at all, then you can go ahead and increase your calories again. And that's how you lean bulk. And lean bulk means like you're building muscle mass and strength, but minimizing fat gain. Okay, so the third foundational thing are your minerals. So this one was actually a really surprising thing to me that I learned recently. So even if your nutrition is on point, like you're getting enough calories, you're even eating mostly whole foods, surprisingly, you can still have mineral deficiencies. This is partly due to the fact that our soils are overproduced on, meaning we don't allow our land to rest. And so the soil gets depleted, which depletes our water supply of minerals. It also depletes our produce. And then, our animals that we eat the depleted produce or whatever, the grains, whatever. And so the meats that we eat, like cows and chickens, etc., they are minerally depleted as well. So it actually is a pretty chronic thing, even here in America. 80% of Americans are deficient in magnesium, and so many other minerals. So some signs that you could have some mineral deficiencies is you have inability to build muscle or strength. You go through cycles of becoming stronger only to become weaker again. You could have extreme cravings, desires to binge, inability to stick to a balanced diet, cold hands, feet, poor sleep, fatigue, low energy, irritability, constantly thinking about food, low extreme appetite, low or extreme appetite. It could be either one. Poor digestion, like constipation or bloating, gaining weight rapidly after coming out of a diet, and even while you're doing everything right, but your weight won't budge. So by the way, if you guys suspect that you might have a mineral deficiency, let me know. I can send you the guide or the video training that covers how to restore your minerals. Okay, so really quickly, the fourth foundational thing before that we want to make sure is in order before we assess if your workouts are effective or not is proper form and rep execution. So outside of beginner lifters who are like learning proper form for like safety and building up their joints, ligaments, and tendons, you'd actually be surprised how many people unknowingly hold themselves back due to improper form in their exercises and rep execution. So now that I'm educated and an experienced coach, like I see this all the time in people, and even when I look at my old workout videos from even just 2 years ago, like I kind of cringe at like what I was doing. It's not that I had poor form or anything like that, but it's mostly that like the style of reps that I was doing weren't as effective as I could have been doing. I was doing a lot of rest pause style, which studies show is not as effective for strength and muscle gains. And then my rep pacing was also off. And then for a lot of like my main lifts, like bench press and weighted chin ups, I wasn't controlling the negative. I think I did this training last week on the science that shows that when you control the negative in a lift, so if you're doing overhead press, this is the positive up and this is the negative down. So I wasn't controlling the negative. I just let the weight drop. And it's not as effective. The studies show that when you control the negative, you get a lot more strength and muscle gains. And they compared the groups who just did negatives only. They compared it to groups who did the positive only, so the up on the overhead press in this case. And then a third group who did both. They controlled the positive and the negative. And at the end, basically they concluded that controlling the negative lends to the most muscle and strength gains. It lends to the most, even when you do control the positive as well. So yeah, even if you have safe form, you can still have poor rep execution, and that can hurt your gains. So so if you've hit a plateau in strength or muscle gain and all of the other foundational factors are in order, you should take a look at your form and how you execute them too. So for example, like let's say you do some kipping in your weighted chin-ups. So kipping is where like, you know, the CrossFitters who like, they basically swing their whole body as they're doing the chin-ups. That's kipping. They're basically using momentum to help them move their bodies in relation to the bar. So in that scenario, if you're doing kipping in your chin-ups, even weighted chin-ups, you can get stronger. And this happened to me. I was getting stronger, but I would quickly hit this plateau, like where I couldn't get past adding 30 pounds to my weighted chin-ups. So, and it's very likely due to the result that I was not controlling my negative. I was doing kipping, so I was cheating with momentum. I only did a little bit of kipping, but still, that's like getting assistance through momentum. So it was that. And then also I wouldn't control my negative. So if instead you control every aspect of the lift, the positive and the negative, you will stimulate muscular and strength gains much more effectively. Or let's say that you're doing bench press and you're allowing the bar to kind of fall or bounce off of your chest, like let's say the last third. So let's say you're doing bench press and you're coming to the negative, you're controlling it from here, but then as you're getting here, you just like let it drop and like kind of bounce off of your chest. That's the same thing. You're using momentum. You're not using your muscle fibers to control the weight. And so as a result, you're not stimulating the muscle fibers. You're cheating yourself by not stimulating your muscles like you could be doing, and therefore getting the results like you could, like increased strength and muscle mass. So those are some examples in which you could have proper form, but your rep execution is poor, and that's a foundational thing that is keeping you from continued strength and muscle gains. So summary: practice with safe form, but also have solid rep execution as part of just foundational aspects of your training. So if you have all four of those things in order, then we can pretty accurately tell from there if it's your training that needs work on, as to why you may not be getting strength gains or muscle gains or hitting these plateaus, et cetera, et cetera. First, let's cover like how to first tell if your workouts actually are effective. The biggest thing that you can tell if your workouts are effective is you're consistently getting stronger, which is the sign that you're also building muscle mass. If you're an intermediate or advanced lifter, you won't always get stronger every single workout, but you should always aim to get more reps or do more weight every single workout. So every time you work out, you should always be aiming to be stronger. Same thing applies to beginners, but again, with the newbie gains, they can more so expect to consistently get stronger every single week. And then so another way that you can tell if your workouts are effective is your clothes are fitting better and you have good energy throughout the day or week. So that can be a key thing. If you feel like you're looking better, but you all of a sudden like have like pretty consistent fatigue, then that can mean that you're being overworked, or you may need to reduce your workout volume or frequency. So point number 2, your clothes are fitting better and you have good consistent energy throughout the day and week. That's a sign that your workouts are effective. Another sign that your workouts are effective is you see muscle size or definition. A really good way to track this is weekly progress pictures. So every week, just taking the same progress pictures week to week and comparing those. So how can you tell if your workouts aren't effective, and what should you do? So if any of those 3 don't apply, especially the first one, if you're not consistently getting stronger in the gym, you can't break past your plateaus in strength, that's a key sign that your workouts aren't effective, at least in your current situation, if all of the other 4 foundational things are in order. So what you do in that case, the first one that I would recommend is prioritize recovery over workout frequency. Most people train with high volume and high workout frequency. Most people train 4, 5, 6 times a week. And if you're a natural lifter, that can be harder for many people to recover from. If you're taking steroids, yeah, recovery is a lot easier, but most of us aren't taking steroids. And so you can get better results working out less often and prioritizing recovery over workout days. So for me, for example, I only work out twice a week and I rest 5 days a week. But the reason why I can do that is because I train to failure, i.e., I am prioritizing intensity and I have very little volume. So I only do one set per exercise. But and like I've never been as strong or fit as I've ever been, even when I was working out 3, 4, 5 times a week. And by the way, science backs this up too. If you want to watch my video training on the science behind it all or read it, just let me know. The other thing is prioritize intensity over volume. So again, this means in your workouts, don't be doing all these different sets, all these different exercises with multiple sets per exercise. For example, most people typically do like 6 to 8 different exercises and they do 3 sets per exercise. So if they're doing bench press, they're going to do 3 sets of bench press. And if they're doing like 6 to 8 different exercises, that's high volume. That's a lot of volume. So instead of doing that, prioritize intensity, i.e. training to failure. And then you only have to do 1 to 2 sets per exercise, depending on how advanced you are and your sticking points. And then the third one is, this one's really important because a lot of people make this mistake, is don't switch your workouts constantly. One reason why you keep hitting these plateaus and your strength and muscle mass is you are always changing your workouts. And when you do that, you can't adequately test for progressive overload, meaning challenging yourself with more load, i.e. through more reps than you did last time, or more weight than you did last time. So you can't do that if you're constantly changing your workouts. I will put this little side note in that if you are very, very advanced, actually, I'm going to get to that later. So instead of switching your workouts constantly, switch to this, stay with the same essential movements, and aim to get stronger in those every time you do those exercises. So for example, when I say like essential things, like to adequately target your chest, you don't need to do like 5 or 6 different exercises for your chest. Really, all you need to do is like a simple pushing movement. That could be bench press, that could be dumbbell bench press, that could be incline bench press. And then the other one that you would need would be what's it called? Some machine flies. So the pec deck. So that basically targets the pecs in the 2 ways that the pecs work, through pushing and through adduction. And you've adequately stimulated and targeted your chest if you train to failure. That's all you need. And then the fourth one, this one's really important. I would say this is what's the word? This would be a tip that most people don't know. So this one is, I saved it best for last. This one's one of the most important ones. So if you plateau in a specific lift for 2 weeks, at least 2 weeks, and all of the other factors are good or in place, then don't switch your workout, but rather slightly adjust how you perform the movement. For example, if you've plateaued in bench press for 2 weeks, don't change your workout altogether. All you have to do is switch the way that you do bench press. So that could be, instead of doing barbell bench press, you do dumbbell bench press. Instead of doing bench press, you could do incline press. You could switch it to like just a machine press, any pressing movement. So it's the same type of movement. It just has a slight variation to it. Another example is like, have you plateaued in weighted chin-ups, and you've already accounted for the 4 foundational things. You're already controlling the positive and the negative. So your rep execution is solid. Then what you can do, all you have to do is just switch to pull-ups. So chin-ups are underhanded like this. Pull-ups are overhanded. Or have you plateaued in pull-ups, then just switch to wide pull-ups, wide grip. If you've plateaued in squats, you could practice ASS to grass squats or wide stance squats. And basically what you're doing is you're still practicing the same movement, but with the slight alteration to it, you're challenging your body from a different position or in a slightly different way. So you're not removing it altogether. You're not switching it out for something just completely different. You're just making a slight alteration. And if you aim for progressive load with that slight alteration in the movement, honestly, like you can push past that plateau. Trust me on this. Okay, so let's summarize real quick. So the 3-step summary is ensure that your foundations and your fitness and nutrition are in order. And that is making sure your sleep is consistent and good, making sure your nutrition is solid, you're not dieting for forever. Most months out of the year, you are either at maintenance or a lean bulk. Make sure that your mineral status is good, that you're basically getting the nutrients that you need, and make sure that you have proper form and rep execution. And then the second step is to assess after all of that, after you know that the 4 foundational things are in order, assess whether your overall trend in your workouts is you getting stronger in your lifts. If that is not the case, then you need to follow these 3 things in order to ensure that you do push past that muscle or strength plateau. And that is reduce your volume, reduce your workout frequency. That means prioritizing recovery over more workout days. You need to reduce your volume, meaning to prioritize intensity over how many sets that you do. And then from there, you also might want to slightly vary how you do the movements that you have plateaued in. So if you've plateaued in pull-ups, switch to wide grip pull-ups. So just slight variations. So does anybody have any questions on that? Let me check Facebook. Hey, Eddie. Glad to have you on.